Hi, folks. Steve Urban here from the Riderflex Podcast. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by two companies I'm deeply involved with. First up, Robo Reliance, your trusted partner for nationwide robot maintenance and repair, specializing in humanoid and autonomous robots for homes and businesses. Visit roboreliance.com to learn more. And for all your home maintenance needs, there's Cura Home Maintenance of Colorado. From air duct cleaning to dryer vent cleaning to gutter cleanouts and much more. Check them out at curahomeservices.com. And finally, don't forget about the two books we've published in the Riderflex Guide series. The first being the Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring. This one is targeted at all types of managers and supervisors, anybody that interviews and hires people. And the second one, the Riderflex Guide 2.0, Mastering Job Interviews, designated to help all levels of job candidates prepare for and ace the interview. And now for today's episode. Please subscribe and enjoy. All right, Kash. By the way, I like your name, Kash. Let's just start there. Tell me about Kash. That's a unique name. I don't see that often. Tell me, do you know any history? Where's your mom and dad? Did you have grandparents name that? How'd that happen?
So my legal name is Kashayla. But at this juncture in my life, if someone is calling me Kashayla, it is because I'm in trouble with the law or I'm in trouble with my husband. My kids have finally gotten to a point where they think it's kind of funny. But it's just a nickname for Cash is just a nickname for Kashayla.
I see.
I most people when they see Kashayla, I mean, I was that kid in school that you'd get to that person in the roster of students that I knew it was me because they're looking at it like how. Before I got really into business, I was in personal training.
I got you.
And I had a client very early on in that juncture of my career that um, just shortened it. They're like, Kashayla. I think I'm just going to call you Cash. And it just kind of stuck from there. And so I've been going by Cash for the majority of my
It's cool. Yeah, it's
life.
unique. I like it. I like it. So, married with kids. Let's see. Tell me a little bit about your family. What's your husband do? How old are your kids? Give us some details.
Yeah. So my husband, we've been together for almost 15 years. He is in the military. He's in the reserves now,
Okay.
and he owns a business calibrating the sensors on all of our smart cars now. So when you get
Interesting.
into an accident, all of those cameras for, lane assist, backup,
Okay.
um, making sure you don't hit the person in front of you. Those tend to get jarred, and we live in a pretty small city in Utah,
Uh-huh.
and there was no one doing it. A lot of the
Okay.
body shops in the area were either having someone come from Las Vegas or Salt Lake City, or they were taking truckloads of vehicles up or to these cities to get them calibrated. And
Interesting.
so he's very polar opposite from me. He's like, we should do this. And I was like, absolutely not. Why would we want to own a business? That sounds like a headache.
Uh,
And so I said, put together a business case. Like I treated him like an employee. I said, put together a business case.
uh,
And I really thought that that was going to be like the wall. Like, I'm
right.
not going
Right.
to do a business
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And about a week and a half later, he came to me with 15 pages of a business case that he put together.
Really. How
Said,
about that? How about that?
I'm going to do this. So he does that now
That's cool.
in our little city. And then we have three kids. We've got a 11-year-old boy, a 6-year-old girl, and a 5-year-old boy.
Wow. It's okay. It's busy around your house.
It is busy. It is always busy.
Yeah.
Pretty quiet this week. They're actually all sick. And at
Oh.
the beginning, we're like, this is miserable. This season of illness has been miserable
Mm.
for many families I've heard. But we have very energetic kids. We did not get a lazy, quiet kid. And they've all been down for the count this week. And in a kind of sick, twisted way, we're like, this is kind of nice. I'm sorry that they're not feeling well, and I feel really bad, but it's also like a nice change of pace.
Wow. Okay. Are they all, they're probably all in activities and you got all kinds of stuff going on.
We have activities every single day. Yes, we are overcommitted to say the least.
And then when you get the whole family, like a family at dinner, like everybody's at dinner at like a normal time and you're all sitting there, you're like, wow, this is weird.
It is. And there, like I said, my husband really is the only like low key personality in the entire family. And so you've got, and I
Um,
have Italian in me, so I
okay.
pass that down. So it's loud. It's loud in my house, but you've got four people talking, and somehow everyone knows what everyone's saying. And you just look at my husband and he looks like a deer in the headlights. Like, how did I get myself into this?
That's good. Well, all right. So tell me about your folks then, your parents. Yeah. Do you have siblings? And tell me about your mom and dad a little bit.
No siblings. My parents, my mom is a VP of a food chain company. Um
Okay.
in operations. She's on the operations side, loves it. She helps actually with processes at the franchise level and helps get
Okay.
new franchises up and running, works with owners of those franchises.
Ah,
My dad, he's funny. He's also has a military background.
well,
And I think it was in 2000 or 2001. My mom was on the road a lot for work. And so he did the stay-at-home dad thing, like shuffled uh, all the activities. And it was a Christmas season. Costco was looking for seasonal workers. And he was like, I'll do it for a couple months.
why not?
So he went in and got forklift certified. And they told all of these seasonal employees in September, October when they hired him. In January, you don't have a job. It will be a mass layoff, totally seasonal.
Yep.
So January came and went. They laid off everyone. He was waiting for his papers. They never came, and he went and talked to them and just like, hey, this was seasonal. And they're like, yeah, we think we're going to keep you if you're okay with that. So he actually has been with them. He just celebrated 25 years with Costco,
Wow.
and he is retiring in April. I'm very much looking forward to
How about that?
enjoying the next stage of life.
That's pretty cool. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. That's well, he's going to retire and your mom's still going to work. Uh,
Yes.
well, maybe that's okay, right? Maybe he can get a little some time to do his thing or whatever. I
It
don't
will probably be good for that relationship.
know.
Yeah.
Are they from Utah? Is that where you grew up?
No, I was born and raised in Oregon. Oregon is beautiful in the summer. It has some rough winters, very dark gray.
Mhm.
And my husband is also an only child, and his parents are actually getting ready to move to Utah. About 3 years ago, we started kind of talking about moving to the desert. We thought Phoenix was where we were going to land.
Okay.
And we visited a small town of St. George, very close to Zion. We love to hike, fish, be outside, and we just fell in love with the area. It's a little bit slower pace of life.
Okay.
You get sun 360 days of the
Yeah.
year. You
Yeah.
get warmth 360 days of the year. And we just took a risk. And
With no job, did you have a job plan? Like, what was the work plan?
so the funny thing is I was working for Icon Food still as the CFO, and I went to our board and said this might be the dumbest thing I ever do in my career, but I'm going to move, and I'm happy to help you find my replacement. And they just were very gracious, like, let's test the waters, let's see if we can make this work, and if not, then we'll reevaluate in 90 days and we'll take you up on your offer to find someone else. And that was 3 years ago. And
And not only did you go remote as a CFO, then you get promoted to CEO.
I did. I did. So it worked out well.
Uh,
So it was totally a leap of faith. My husband and I were really at a stage that we started to realize that life was was going faster than we were ready for it to go, and you don't get time back. And we just we realized that we were living for, the jobs that we had, for
yeah.
keeping our parents happy. And we just got to a point where we didn't want to look back 10, 15, 20 years and say we lived for everyone and everything else around us and have regrets. So it was risks that we definitely took. I'm not a risk taker. It was the biggest risk of my life.
Usually CFOs aren't.
I'm not. I am very much a very typical CFO in that fashion, but it's worked out really well. I do split my time now between Portland and St. George, which is difficult. And
Did they get you like a corporate apartment or whatever you stay in when you go, or how's that work? Or do you have the home?
so I can I could put myself up in a hotel, but my parents actually live about 3 miles from my office.
Perfect.
It kind of levels the
Yeah, perfect.
bruising that I caused when I
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's and plus you can just keep up on your parents and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. That works.
Yeah.
Right. Plus it's an easy flight, right? I mean, that's like an hour, right? I mean, or is it not?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I do have to go through, it's a regional airport in St. George, so I got to go through
Sweet.
Salt Lake,
No.
but it's about 2, 3 hours total travel. It's not
So
terrible.
there's a connection.
Hmm.
That's a killer.
It
Wow.
is, but
Yeah. But you have, see, you're in I lived a life like this. So you're in a situation where you're not really packing clothes, right? You got clothes there, right? Or
I
you don't have
have
to.
like two lives.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have like a closet here in Portland and a closet at home.
I lived the life. Before I started Riderflex, I was president and CEO for about a $40 million furniture company in
Okay,
DC, Maryland.
okay.
But we live in Colorado, and my wife's like, she's like, I'm not moving to DC. So, so I flew back and forth for 3 years, and I had an apartment that they paid for there. Same thing. So I mean, I just took my briefcase, my duffel
Yeah.
bag with me, and I didn't have to pack anything, which was handy.
What
However,
part of Colorado are you guys in?
we're in between Fort Collins and Denver, so a little northern
Okay.
Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just didn't want to move. But I feel for it. How long you been doing that commute? Is it every other week?
So as the CFO, it was once a month typically. I'd come
Yeah.
up for a full week once a month. Stepping into the CEO, I'm on the road 2 weeks out of the month
Yeah.
typically. And I usually do them back to back.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm home
Oh,
on the weekends. We tried the every other week, and I felt like I couldn't get like comfortable anywhere, and I felt like it was more of a disruption to my kids and my husband. Like I'd come home and I'd be like the fun parent because I'd been gone and didn't want the disciplinary. And
uh,
as soon as you start to get settled, it was like, all right, I gotta go. Um, and so we just found that the 2 weeks back to back was a little easier on the transition. I would say that the difficulty from the professional side is those 2 weeks that you're gone, you have some employees that are like out of sight, out of mind. She's not
oh,
doing
no doubt.
anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I mean,
so I think the relationship side, it's almost like dating again. Like the first couple of days you're back in the office, it's like, it's good to see you. How's it going?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that a lot of people think that the travel is glamorous
Oh
and
shit. No.
fun,
Oh, no.
and then you
It's
do
not.
it and you're like,
No.
no,
No.
there's nothing
No.
about this that is glorious.
I listen. I can relate. By the way, we could do a whole hour conversation on airports and people. You know, it got so bad. So when I flew back and forth for those 3 years, I for the most part I did every week. I should have tried the 2 weeks, by the way.
Mm.
I was so sick of flying. By the time I'd finished that 3 years, that last year, I just hated everything about the airport. Like even,
Yeah.
and by the way, like half the time I was getting bumped up to first class,
Mhm.
and still, it just the smell, the people, the everything, just everything.
Well, the funny thing is, you can tell, so you can probably relate to this. You can tell the people that travel for work on a regular basis and the people that don't. Because the
Yes,
people that travel on a regular basis, I just told my husband, I have AirPods, so I'm definitely the AirPod person.
yes, of
But I
course.
told my husband, I'm getting to the point where I want like over the ear because I put my AirPods in and people are still trying to talk to you. And I feel like when you have the over the ears, it's like, don't talk to me. Like
Don't
it's the
talk to me.
same sign. But there's a lot of times I'll travel back on Friday night, getting home at midnight, 1 o'clock,
Yeah,
well after everyone has entered their weekend. And you've got the people traveling for their weekend, like all excited and hyped, and you're sitting there like, don't freaking talk. Don't look at me.
don't look at me.
Don't talk
Don't
to
talk to
me,
me. Don't. Yes,
like
please
keep
don't.
your thoughts to yourself. And so you kind of get onto the plane and you just kind of like look the other way. You don't want to make and you can see the other people that have done this for so long. Like you're
Yes,
like, you're my people.
yes, yes,
Please sit next to me because you're gonna just leave
yes.
me alone.
I used to envision, oh my gosh, we're going down to, we could talk about this forever. I used to envision, I was like, man, I wish I could carry like a piece of cardboard or something and like stick it on the side of my shoulder down through my arm to where like they can't, I don't like, don't touch my arm,
Yeah.
don't touch me. And I also wanted like some sort of like, you know, those things that horses wear where they're like, I'm
Oh,
like, I
blinders.
don't like, don't.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, and it's not because it's not, and you're obviously a friendly person. You know, we're both obviously somewhat extroverted. We wouldn't be doing this podcast. It's just that I just didn't have time. I'm either looking at reports or I'm trying to catch up on numbers or whatever. Right? I don't have time to get to know Johnny, who I'm never going to see again in my life. Like no.
I think for me too, yes, I can relate to all the work stuff, but as an executive, I mean, my door is closed now for the podcast, but throughout the week, your door is a revolving door.
Yes.
And what is going on in your personal life or outside of the walls, as soon as I mean, it's almost like an actor, right? You walk through the building doors and all of that stuff has to click off, and you now have to be the person that's
Yep.
got their shit together,
Yep.
that can put on a smile through it all, that can start an email 17,000 times because every time you turn to get into it, the door opens and someone has something to say, whether it is important or not. And so for me, getting on those planes, it's like the 1 or 2 hours during the entire week that literally you can't call me. I mean,
Can't
you
call
could
it.
text me, but I could choose not to answer.
Yeah.
But it's a moment of time where it's like it's for me. And
Yeah.
it sounds
I
kind
got
of selfish,
you. No,
but
no, yeah, totally,
um
totally,
but
totally.
a lot of people that want to climb they don't realize that as you climb, you really just become more of a babysitter to adults. And the time that you have to yourself is so limited and so precious that to your point, yeah, Joe Schmo over here, I'm never gonna talk. I don't care that you have 3 kids. That's lovely. I wish them all the best. I
Yeah.
hope they have fun at gymnastics tomorrow, but um
And we can get into this too. So how long you been CEO for now? When did you get promoted? Uh,
June will be a year.
okay. Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank
Uh,
you.
Interesting, right? There's no, and it's a small cap. Can you share? I don't know. It's private. I don't know if you can share volume, but what do you got
We
there? Is
do
it
about we do about 25 to 30 million a
okay?
year.
Yeah, that's good. All right. So we have very similar experience there. It's not like there's a training checklist, right? It's not like, hey, by the way, Cash, we're getting ready to promote you, and we're like GE, and we have this 6 month training period where we're going to take you through and teach you how to be a CEO, blah blah blah. Like there is none of that. There's just like, congratulations, you're CEO. Here you go.
You know what's funny is I'm actually the site. So our founder was our original CEO
Okay.
and CEO for the 25 years prior to me.
Still active, by the way?
He's active in the day to day. He's on our board and he
Okay.
has moved into an innovations role, very much a scientist. I give him grace and kudos all the time.
Are you like, just go over there?
No, he actually has really he's the one that made the decision, which I
Oh,
give a lot of grace because there's not many
okay.
founders that recognize that they're
Right.
not meant to be a CEO.
Totally.
And so he made that decision and he has really been great about I'm here if you need me, but I'm also not here if you don't need me. Um,
That's wonderful.
it
That
is, and
doesn't
we
always go that way.
it does not. I've been very grateful for that. But we tried to put together a transition plan, but a lot of the transition plan was you're going to be drinking from a water hose for the next 6 months, and there are still days where the water hose is on full blast. But I don't think in any industry there is a manual
Yeah.
to move into a C-level position, especially a CEO, due to, every market, every industry has its trends, changes, things being thrown at you. I mean, in our industry right now, the administration changes that are happening are having a big impact on our industry. You can't
Ah,
train for that.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's really just real world, real life experience. And some days you hit the pavement face first hard and you have to get back up. And some days you know what you're doing.
the stress, I'm sure you're learning how to deal with the stress. People, I always tell, especially friends or family, I always tell them, I'm like, look, and until you've sat in the captain's chair and you're responsible for 150 people, like you just really have no idea the amount of pressure and stress. Like you just don't. Like it's hard for me to even you can't even really talk to people about it unless they've also sat in the chair, right? It's just very difficult to convey what that's like, the amount of pressure. Um, Talk to me about how are you learning to manage it? How are you dealing with it so far?
$1 million question. I think that there are good days and bad days. I mentioned earlier that my husband is very opposite of me, and I would not be able to do what I do without him. And there's definitely moments where he has forced me to pause. I would also say that our former CEO and founder has also been very gracious. And,
That's great.
Cash, I would love to see you work your life away to make sure that this business, but you can't, right? Because you're going to have a burnout. And
Yeah,
if your cup is not full, you truly cannot pour
yeah,
from a full cup.
yeah.
I had to very much, like I just said, I had to learn that lesson on my own. So my first couple months, I was balls to the walls,
Yeah, yeah,
working 80, 100-hour weeks because of that stress. You take it, I would say a good leader takes it seriously
yeah.
because if these doors close, it's employees that care for kids, wives, husbands.
Yep.
You take it seriously. It's not just, well, packing up and going on to get a new job. It is a real life impact on the people that ultimately come in and serve you every day. And so I did feel this immense pressure, and I got to a point where I got really sick. I don't get sick very often,
Yeah,
but I
because that's
got
what happens.
sick.
That's what
It
happens. Yep.
does. And I was completely horizontal for 2 days. And that was kind of my wake up call of
Mm,
you got to pace yourself. You got to make sure that you have the right people in place, because if you have the right people in place, they come alongside you and you
yep.
no longer feel all of the weight. Um, but I would say setting boundaries. And so that travel back and forth, when I'm home, I'm home. So I make sure that the the work is turned off, at least for me to have dinner with my family.
Okay.
Um,
That's good.
I'm pretty active, so I have to work out, move my body every day and make sure that that is a priority. But when I'm here in the office, I also am here 100%. And so I think it's all about setting boundaries. And when things come to my plate, um, as a CFO, you kind of have this fail safe with the CFO, the CEO, and you're feeding information, but ultimately the decision comes from the CEO. And so
Right.
you can feed all you want. And so you can make decisions quickly. I used to make decisions at the snap of a finger. And now, sitting in the CEO spot, you realize that those decisions have impacts on other people and other departments in ways that you maybe didn't think about in the CFO seat. And
That's right.
so, one thing that has really helped me is I don't have to make decisions today. I don't have to make a decision because you put something on my desk. Sometimes I do, but in slowing down and realizing that I'm in charge of the decision and the timeline of that decision has really actually helped my mental state. I don't feel
Good.
like I'm on this quick, like, gotta do it now, gotta do it now, or this email comes through, gotta do it now. It's, is the building gonna burn down? Someone gonna get hurt? You kind of go through those lenses of
Yeah.
how critical is this and can it truly wait?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very long-winded, but I think boundary setting is something that has helped me stay mentally sane.
I'm gonna have to have you back on the show because we could do like 3 hours on this whole topic. I want to ask you about um, AI
Mm.
and what you're doing at the company so far. How are you implementing things? How are you guys staying on top of it? What are you doing to use it to make yourself more efficient? How's it affecting your company and how are you using it so far?
Yeah, so AI is tricky.
Yeah.
I use it. I actually love it. It has created a lot of streamlines and efficiencies in my flow.
Yeah.
One of the and manufacturing. We do manufacturing here on site, and so
Okay.
a lot of our equipment we're starting to move to
Oh,
more of an AI manufacturing process. But I think the worry for me with AI is there's not a lot of regulation around it. And
yeah.
so when that regulation comes into play, if we're so immersed into it, how are we going to have to take a step back? So those are things that we're having conversations about at the leadership level on,
Yeah.
if we start implementing all of this AI and then we start getting a lot of
Mm, mm,
regulation,
mm,
what do we do? Do we go back to the way things were?
mm.
One of the tricky things with AI is um I do a lot of commenting and um questions for media outlets in our industry. And I use it a little bit in the foundation. My fear is that if we're all using AI to answer these questions, at some point those answers are going to be verbatim. And so
Uh,
that's my fear in some of the AI is how much of our industry is using it, but also how much of our industry is fact checking what they're pulling from AI versus yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and feed that to all the media outlets without doing some fact checking. Because the thing with AI, it gets better as you use it. It's not always 100% accurate.
it is a fascinating time that we are living in. I just every week, it seems like every week there's more news or something else comes out, and I tell my co-founders, my partners, like, wow, like this is just incredible. Like there's some of the stuff that is happening right now is absolutely amazing. Yeah, I don't know where it's all going. I don't think anybody does. Even when you listen to Sam Altman or Elon or whoever's talking,
Yeah.
you know, none of them really know where it's going or how far or what it's going to do to the workforce. Like and the reporters always try to pin them down, Well, what's it going to do for jobs? What's it going to do for this or this or this? And everybody's always got this kind of like non-answer, like, yeah, everything's going to be okay. And everybody's like, is it? I don't know.
Exactly. The fear, so we were in an all-day quarterly leadership planning session yesterday, and AI actually came up. And I hadn't looked this far into it. I've really only used, like the chat GPTs. And my thing is coming, you probably can relate to this. CFOs are very direct. Like they're trying to get from A to B quick. And my tone is definitely in emails very direct.
I can
And
see
so
that.
that's actually how I started with AI was I would put my email, I would type out the email and I'd put it into
Yeah,
ChatGPT and I would say soften the tone
I
coming from
love
the
it. I
CEO,
love
right?
it. That's so good. That's so good.
And so that's how and I was like, yeah, I mean that
Great.
perfect. But one thing that scares me just a little bit, actually not a little bit, a lot of it, is some of the video type AI that's coming out. One of the things that one of our team members mentioned is that they're now able to take a video, like they could take this podcast that we're doing, and I forget the platform that's doing it, but they could take this podcast that we're doing, translate it to Spanish
Yep.
and manipulate our mouths so that they're not just overlaying Spanish text, that they are ensuring that our mouths match that Spanish language.
I believe it.
And that to me gets a little bit scary because they can do that, then what else could they do with this video?
Oh,
Like, can they manipulate what you say, what I say, and change it to match, their agenda? That's where I get a little bit scared is um what is it going to do where we don't have sign off
I
on
know.
how we're being used?
I know. Yeah, boy, we're going to keep going. By the way, this is a great conversation. So I want to extend past if you don't mind, when this is going to time out on us, will you just pop back in? I'll
Yeah.
splice them together. Um, you know, we could talk, gosh, I could bring you back on the show. We could do a whole nother hour on AI. Yeah, I do the same thing. I have a bunch of, I don't know if you have GPTs built or you have little agents built, right? And I have one that's like, just proof my email, and then I have one that's like make my email softer. I have like five or six different ones that I'll just have it do something,
Yep.
and then I have a clone built where I've put in everything about me, the books we've written, my podcast episode, everything about me, right? It's like, and I call it Steve Urban Clone. That's actually what I have it called. And I'll just tell it like, hey, I need a blog today for whatever. Make sure you're coming from it at my angle, and I've kind of trained it to be more like me so that it doesn't sound just like everybody else's answer. At least I think it does,
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm like you. I don't know. I rarely now, if there's anything written that comes out of my laptop and it is sent to somebody else, it's at least looked at by AI to make sure it's not messed up.
100%. And I would say that's kind of where my comfort zone is right now. For it to like write a paper for me, or like I said, to write a response going into a media outlet, I will have it grammatically check it.
Sure.
And I'll also have
There's
it
no excuse for poor writing.
right.
There's no excuse for anybody to send something that's written poorly right now. Sorry,
Correct.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. So I have I would say 100% of what I write grammatically checked.
Absolutely. Yep.
Actually, I have a plugin into my Outlet for so it's automatically doing it. It's adding the commas, periods where they need to go, moving them where they need to go,
Yep.
and checking for tone. But like I said, it can, the ability, and I think that's one of the fears for me too in the education system. I'm a big advocate for education. I think it is one of the best assets you can give to your children. Um, Not saying that college is required, but I think that's a worry for me is I think that's where regulation needs to be is kind of around our education system because I wonder of the kids that are coming out of college, how much of it is Chat GPT that did their stuff for them versus them actually getting their degree? And I had a conversation, we have a neighbor who's an anesthesiologist, and I asked him actually a couple weeks ago, how is AI being implemented in the hospital system? How
Yeah.
is it being implemented in the medical world? And it's a lot of what's going on there is very fascinating as well.
Yes, for sure.
But how much of it is being implemented in education? And, I'm also a believer in our medical system, but if I go have surgery tomorrow, did my anesthesiologist get his degree through actual education and being in the books, or was it Chat GPT? And he said, there's going to be things, especially undergrad, I think is where they're going to have to focus a lot of this regulation around. But he tried to tried to calm me down and doctors still have to go through residency. So you have on-site work where even if you use Chat GPT, you're going to have to come in and prove that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that the majority of AI right now is on scanning. So, like ultrasounds,
I see. Okay.
X-rays. It's more like that. They're doing the pre-scans and then they're having a doctor just review. But that's the next question is if you have this going through a review process and it's catching everything, do we need? I don't know.
So now my question, Cash, now is okay. So did you hear that they did this? They ran a bunch of tests for ChatGPT to see if they could diagnose this situation, and it like beat 95% of doctors.
Yes.
I mean,
I mean,
so
that's impressive.
so then it's interesting. I think right now people will maybe lean towards what you said, like, oh, I don't know if I want the human, but it might shift the other way where you go to the doctor and you're like, well, hold on, wait a minute, you're just a human. What did what did ChatGPT say? I need to know what it. I mean,
But here's the other question to that. So I mean, I got into this huge debate with our neighbor. So here's the question. So if AI gets it wrong in the medical sense,
okay,
who's liable?
that's a good question. They're gonna have to.
Do you
That's
sue
that's
Chat GPT?
yeah. I just listened to an interview with the chairman of OpenAI.
Okay.
Trying to remember his name. Um, and he said that's where that'll be their biggest I don't know, hurdle wasn't the right word, but he said legally, health wise and everything, they'll just have to be liability rules and laws around how that works, which to his point, he's like, we kind of already have that now. We have that now. It just needs to state that it goes to the AI piece too, or whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. There's going to have to be that there's going to have to be some regulations around liability. It's interesting now, and this is not a political. I don't want anybody to. I'm not highlighting either party, but I happened to listen to JD Vance's speech in France yesterday. I think it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Solid speech around AI. Around his whole thing is we're going to be careful about putting any regulation in because that'll stop progress and it'll also snuff out the little players and it'll give the incumbent big players an advantage because now we're going to suffocate everybody with these rules. Meanwhile, the open AIs of the world already have an advantage. It's like we can't do that, so we're going to be careful about regulation. Which sounded good, but then to your point, you're like, well, okay, that sounds good from a fair market perspective, but then I've listened to. Sorry, I'm rambling. Then I listened.
No, I love
Then I listened to what's the guy who just won the Nobel Prize? They call him the Godfather of AI. Hell, uh,
I know.
geez, his name's escaping me. Meanwhile, he's being interviewed saying we have got to put regulation in because Terminator's coming, you know? And so,
Mhm. Yeah. I
uh,
think, it's funny because um you have me all flustered on the Jeffrey Hinton.
yeah, Jeffrey Hinton, thank
Yeah.
you.
It was right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Um it's a very polarizing subject because I asked my mom about this too because she works for like I said a food chain, and I asked her about AI. I said, well, how are you guys using AI? And she said, we're not. Absolutely. It is like
Interesting.
it is a no-no word in there.
Really?
And I said, you're not using it at all. And she said, nope, we're not allowed to. And I said, that's interesting because
Wow.
when you pick up your phone, I know you do talk to text. I know that you ask Siri.
Thank you.
AI. That's
Uh,
AI. So you can't say that you're not using AI. It's just what level is allowed. But
Bingo.
it's interesting because she has a coworker that works for her, or not a coworker, it's a colleague. And she's on the IT side of things. And they were doing some recoding. And I asked her about it. I said, you guys still not using AI? And she goes, no. And from an IT side of things, I'm super skeptical about the whole AI side of things. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's fair. She goes, however, I think that there's a time and a place. And we just did this whole recoding project, and we literally had a coder going through lines of codes for 10 to 12 hours a day, line by line by line by line. And I said, that's a waste of money, a waste of
What do you
resources.
do? Yeah.
They're looking for something. I mean, like if you just do find and replace, that's AI, right? Like we've been using find and replace in Word
Exactly.
for 10
Exactly.
years. That's a
Exactly.
level of AI, right? And so she goes, I went and I vouched for AI in this specific situation because we would have saved weeks
Yeah.
and money, resources, time, like all of these things. And they said, absolutely not.
You
So
know,
that's where I'm like, I think that's too much of a no for me. Like if
oh,
I
for
could save
sure.
some money and it's not, I mean, it's really find and replace.
And quite honestly, they'll eventually be crushed by the competition. I mean,
Mhm.
the competition that is using AI to move faster and be more efficient and save money, they're going to crush the people that don't use it.
Yeah.
They're going to crush. You're going to be left behind. Yeah, that is if there's a company out there right now restricting employees from using ChatGPT, unless you're like, I don't know, building nuclear weapons or something and you're afraid the Chinese might steal it. Beyond that, like if you're blocking people from using AI, that is such a terrible move. You're gonna get crushed by competition. By the way, speaking of debates with neighbors, I like to do this too. You're like me. Neighbors will come over, we'll be having happy hour or whatever, and I like to get them going a little bit.
I learned quickly who the neighbors that I'm going to hang out with are not because you get into the debates and they either never come back
I know, yeah, don't
or
come
they're
back over.
like, let's go into the next topic.
One of my favorite ones right now is, especially if they have kids.
Mm.
I'll go, hey, so do you let your 12-year-old use ChatGPT for homework? Oh, no, 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 no. I'd never do that. I'd never do that. That's cheating. I said, okay. Do you let them Google stuff? Do you let them use Google? Oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. I said, well, do you let them use Microsoft Word for spell check? And then my favorite one is I'll hold up the calculator and I'll go, do you make them do like hand long division or do you let them use a calculator for their math? I was like, what? Where do you draw the line? Where's the
Hey,
line?
listen, I actually just got into this debate with my 11-year-old. Uh, because I'm a math major. My master's is in finance and accounting.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
right.
I would privy myself pretty well versed in math. However, I do love Excel.
Yeah.
And the math that they're teaching, my son came home and he's doing long division now. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. My husband, of course, is like,
Man, I,
check, like tag you're it.
yeah,
And so I'm doing this. And of course, he's like, that's not how you do it. And I'm like, this is how you do it. How about you do it your way? I'll do it my way, and we'll see who gets the right answer. We both came to the right answer, but he's got 17 steps. I just,
yeah,
so the calculator, just like,
yeah, yeah. I think you're doing the right thing. And then I want to give you a chance to give a company overview. I think you're doing I mean, you're doing what I would do, which is, hey, let's use AI where it makes sense. Um, let's be careful and thoughtful about some things. Like to your point, I think that's really, by the way, smart move. Nobody's said that recently on the podcast. Like, I don't want to invest a bunch of time and money training my people how to use this AI tool, and then the government decides to say, "Oh, we can't do that." And now I just waste all that time. So yeah, that's a good thought process. But I think you're doing the right thing by using. I honestly believe I have fired two recruiters that worked for me that didn't want to use AI tools. We started implementing AI tools for recruiting in some aspects of the business, and they wouldn't use it. And I was like, okay, well, you don't work here anymore. I mean, I'm not going to be left behind by the competition. I think you're doing the right thing. We could talk for like another 4 hours. Fascinating time. Maybe we'll all just be retired and AI and robots will do everything and we'll all just, I don't know, hang out.
well, that's the funny thing. Like, I got into a big debate actually with my husband a couple of weeks ago on AI because the longmen sure strike, right? Like, they went on strike because of the fear of AI. But and this is I'm on the fence about this because there is a level of humanity. Like, people need jobs, right? They need
Do
jobs,
we
families to
do we,
provide.
but do we, do we need jobs? What
Okay,
if,
let me rephrase
all
that.
right.
We need money to live
Okay.
the
There
life that
you
we
go.
want to
There we
live.
go. There
Okay,
we go.
how we get that
There
right
we go.
now is currently jobs. But being a business owner, being a leader in business, it is hard times out there right now, if you know what I mean.
No doubt.
I don't really think that I need to like elaborate on
We
that
have, we,
for
yes,
leaders.
yes, yes,
You understand what I'm saying.
yes.
And so there is a level of like, yes, I don't want my business to stop, to slow, to be put on pause because my employees don't want to work today, or, just whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. There's
Yeah.
so many things going on right now in the
Yeah.
world. And so there's this level of like, yes, I want people working in my business because it brings a level of humanity, but there's also this side of like, I don't want the business to stop. And so AI, like artificial intelligent machines, can ensure that if my employees don't show up today, that we're still running product. And so this is kind of the dichotomy that I'm stuck in is, I don't want I want to have longshoremen. We need them for importing and exporting, but also if they don't show up, it has a big impact on our economy. And so there's a level of me that's for AI in those situations, but how do you protect jobs? But then there's jobs that people don't want to do. Another
Cash,
rabbit hole.
this is going to be the highlight clip for the show. What you just described, I think any good CEO is thinking about right now. They're all thinking humanity. These are real human beings. They need jobs. I want to take care of them. But my competitor over here, who does the same thing I do, just bought 100 robots from Figure AI, and they also implemented ChatGPT agents that came out. They reduced their employee count by 200. They have these robots and AI that just do shit all day long, and they don't complain, they don't get sick, they don't get tired, and they don't have any drama or anything, and they just do stuff. And oh, by the way, because my competitor did that, guess what? They were able to lower their prices and run me out of business because their cost of goods dropped. And so all these CEOs are there. I think most CEOs will be like you. They'll be like, wow, okay, I'm a human being and I want to take care of these employees, but But holy cow, my competitor just put 100 robots in with AI, and if I don't do the same, they're going to crush me. So then what do I do? Because and so you're in this, yeah, you're in this like, oh man, and so that thought process and that stress you're feeling, I think a lot of companies and CEOs are going to be faced with that in the next 24, 36 months. A ton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, anyway, what I was going to say about do we need jobs? I was going to mention this, see if you agree with this. I hear people say, and I follow all kinds when I'm on the treadmill and stuff. I follow all kinds of AI podcasters. There's this one lady. She's a little out there. Her name's Julia McCoy. She thinks everything's going to be fine and we're going to live in this utopia world. But one of the notes that she blasts out that I kind of agree with, she's like, she's like, I hear people say, oh, my job is my purpose. And if I don't have work, I'm not going to have a purpose. And, all of us humans, we have to have a purpose. And my job's my purpose. And she's like, that's all bullshit. She's like, she goes, hey, my purpose would be hanging out with my kids, going camping, playing in my Jeep. If I don't have to work, that'll be my purpose. My purpose doesn't have to be my job. And I love that because I'm like, yeah, really, seriously. Like, is your whole life purpose your work? Like, I don't think so. I think we can find other purposes if we don't have to work, is my point. I don't know. Do you agree? What are your thoughts?
This is a typical one for me. So I do agree. Like if I had to like rank the things that are important to me, work is not the first. But I do agree with a level of purpose. And I'll find it and send it over to you. I believe it was the Washington Post about 2 years ago, put out an article about people that retire early have shorter lifespans, and they correlated it to lacking purpose. And I don't know the sample size of
Yeah,
the people that they looked at, or what their life was outside of it, whether they were married with kids or
yeah,
anything like that.
yeah.
I think that there is a level of, I don't know if it's purpose, but I think that there's a level of like responsibility that
Maybe.
you learn. And if you don't, do you appreciate those things as much? I mean, like my kids, my husband, yes, I love them. I am infinitely
Good
grateful
point.
with or without a job.
Good point.
But outside of work, like my leisurely time is golf. I love to golf.
Okay.
And if I'm able to golf 7 days a week, all day long,
Would you love it as much?
would I love it as much?
Yeah. Maybe not.
I had that freedom. Um, but I also am just naturally a problem solver. And so I think that's why I enjoy the CEO roles, because it's a new problem every day and
Right.
you're constantly problem solving. But I do get joy and fulfillment out of my work. And I think also because I don't want to be identified by any one thing in my life. Like I don't want people to see me as AJ's wife or
Yeah.
Aiden's mom or the CEO of Icon Foods. Like these are all things that make up Cash, but they're not who I am, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it gives me a little bit of autonomy outside of the other things that are important to me.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be in for some transition if AI ends up and everybody has last thing I'll say on AI, and then I want you to do an Icon Foods review. Um, whoever you listen to, right? Some people are like, oh, AI is just going to create more jobs and it's going to be fine, and other people are like, it's going to eliminate a bunch of jobs. It's all over the place. The opinions are all over the place. I don't know where it's going, what I do strongly believe is I believe there's going to be a short-term messy period
100%.
where it is going to eliminate jobs, already is going to
Mhm.
eliminate jobs, And if new ones are going to be created, that's cool. I'm just worried they're not going to be created fast enough. And so then you're going to have this drag and there's going to be messiness in there. I'm worried about that.
I think with all things, I mean, you could look at anything that's happened in the last 10 years, COVID, administration changes.
Yeah.
There's always that drag, and it's always a little painful. And I don't think you understand or know the ramifications for it until well after it's passed.
Good
Uh,
point.
I mean, I've talked about the COVID thing on many podcasts, having a kid that was in kindergarten through COVID, right? It was easy to send them home, but we're starting to see some of the impact of that now that he's going into middle school, like social issues,
Mm-hmm.
the anxiety, the fear that we put in them, not maliciously,
No,
but
yeah.
just how things unfolded. It just naturally. So I think with all things, there's going to be a lag. And to your point, I'm also a little worried that we're not planning for that lag. I would say my last little piece on like the AI in all aspects, AI, political or whatever. I think it's important to read and be educated on both sides, right? Like it doesn't matter where you vote. You should be reading what's going on the Democratic side and the Republican side, and
Good
so that
point.
you can have informed opinions and make informed decisions. I think it's the same with AI. You have to be looking at the people that are so vehemently against it and why, and the people that are so vehemently for it and why. And you know, I firmly believe that the truth, the knowledge, the nuggets are always somewhere in between. The
Mm.
people that are vehemently against it, there are some legitimate reasons.
Sure. Agreed.
And the people that are vehemently for it, there are also some legitimate reasons. But how do we come together and create something that works for both sides in a safe manner? And I think if we could do that in all areas of the
Uh,
situations we're dealing with right now, I think we would be having some interesting, efficient, effective conversations and able to move needles.
wow, spoken like a veteran CEO.
I
Like,
don't
hey, let's find some middle ground. Wow, all right, I like it. Hey, tell me about Icon Foods. Give the listeners the little elevator pitch, real quick.
Yeah. So we are in the ingredient space. So we work with CPGs that you purchase at the grocery store, and we only work in clean label sugar reduction. So we work with companies that are either trying to eliminate, reduce, or yeah, eliminate or reduce their sugars
Okay.
with naturally occurring sugars. So we do not work with any chemically based sweeteners. We are working with naturally derived sweeteners, and helping drive down sugar intake in America.
Okay, yeah, that's a big job. I mean, sugar's the number one drug on the planet, I guess, besides caffeine, maybe, I think. I don't know. So is it like formulations and so forth, or are you a manufacturer or both, or
A little bit of both. So we import most of the raw, like the commodity raws, which would be like your stevias,
I see.
monk fruits, allulose, erythritol,
Okay.
are not typically done domestically. So those raws are manufactured. Most of them are derived from corn.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Yeah.
and so that process is done outside of the US. We import and then we do distribute at the commodity level. One of the challenges with reducing sugar is that there's sugar, while I completely agree it's the number one drug on the market over
Yeah.
the counter,
Yep.
um, it is a pretty fascinating ingredient in that it is used predominantly for sweetness, but it is also a bulking agent. So you use it as fillers in a lot of products.
Ton of product.
But
I mean, it's in so many things.
it's
Yeah.
in everything. It's
Yeah.
in literally everything. But it has this unique ability to hit the tip of tongue all the way back to the back of the throat
Uh,
as far as mouthfeel. Um, and so when you are, and it's sweet. Most of what we do is either thousands of times sweeter than sugar, such as your stevias, or a fraction of the sweetness. And so there's really no one-to-one replacement on sugar. So we do work with companies that are removing sugar, and how do you remove the sugar and put something in and not lose sweetness, not lose bulk, and not lose that full mouthfeel. So there's a level of formulation that comes into play, which is way over my pay grade and head.
I use the stevia in my coffee now. It's okay. Like I wish it was closer. I wish it was like just a little closer to the taste of sugar. Like I'm doing it and I know it's better for, I mean, I'm assuming it's better for me. But every time I do it, I'm like, God, every once in a while, I'm like, boy, I sure do miss that sweet, that sugary creamer from time to time.
I'll get you some one-to-one replacements. You
Okay.
like stevia?
I mean, yeah, yeah, I'm using it now. Yeah.
So
Uh,
one of my favorites, we do have a B2C line. It's
okay.
stevia. So for
Okay.
any of your listeners that are interested, if they go to
Okay. Okay.
viva.com, they can get some of it. But one of my favorites is our product is Keto Sweet Plus, which is allulose and stevia. And so the allulose is 70% as sweet as sugar. So you
Okay.
you can use that, but you're going to lose the sweetness as far as like if you take out a cup of sugar
Uh-huh.
and you put in a cup of allulose, it would work, but it's not going to be as sweet. And so
Okay.
we add in stevia in micro doses to bring that sweetness up. So you now get the same amount, that one-to-one replacement,
I see.
more of a mouth feel, and you don't lose the sweetness.
So do you have a plant, you have a manufacturing plant or just R&D? Or
We do. We manufacture out of the building.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we're doing the blends. We also do particle reduction, and this is always fascinating. I love manufacturing. Actually, my favorite days in the office are the days I get to go work
Right.
in production with my team. But
Cool.
we do particle reduction, which is that process of taking like granulated sugar that you would use to make cookies or cake and reducing it down to a powdered sugar that you would use to do like a frosting. Cane sugar and powdered sugar, it's the same ingredient, but it's a finer mesh size depending on the application it's going into. So we do that particle reduction process here on site.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. Cool. How many employees you got?
We have 25 employees.
Okay. And so if I want to if I need you, who am I if I need you? I am a cookie dough maker that wants to use your ingredients instead of sugar, or give me some
It
examples.
could be anything. Our biggest CPGs are beverage. We work with a lot of
I
beverage
see.
companies.
I
I
see.
would imagine some of them are in your fridge or
Okay.
cupboard.
Okay.
And then bars. We do a lot of like protein bars, nutraceutical bars. But we've done everything. We've done
Wow.
cookies, we've done condiments,
Okay.
we've done um
So you're a co-packer, so to speak, too. You've
we don't do the co-pack. So
okay.
we only do the ingredient side. So a
I see.
company would typically come to us. I mean, so Riderflex Nutrition Bar would come to us and they may be using erythritol and stevia. We would provide them with that erythritol and stevia or the formulation guidance on,
I see. I see. I
if I
got you.
do this, but we work with their co-packers. So
I
we
see.
don't
I
do
got you.
any product that goes into the grocery store. We're one step removed from that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Website, Icon Food. What is it? Is it Icon Food?
iconfoods.com. If you have consumers that are listening that want the product directly, Steviva, um,
Okay.
Steviva.com, and they can get some consumer product.
I'm guessing that's a tiny piece of your revenue, B2C, right?
It is less than 10%,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're very honestly, Steviva, a whole nother story. Steviva is what founded this company. So our founder founded Staviva out of his garage in California,
Cool.
and a massive bar company that ended up selling for $1 billion found his blend in a grocery store. And so Staviva is the consumer brand that was the catalyst for Icon Foods, which is the wholesale brand.
I see. Okay. Okay. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure, Cash. I would love to have you back on after you've been in the chair for another 12, 24 months and see what you've experienced.
Love it.
Really great job. Congratulations on your career and everything you're doing. Love the conversation, and congrats on staying on top of AI. Some of these CEOs are not paying attention, Cash. Some of them.
Oh,
And
no.
so, yeah, great job. Wonderful having you on. Sorry I kept you over. I'll get this draft to you. And maybe today or tomorrow, I'll send it over to you. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yep. Nice to meet you. We connected on LinkedIn, didn't we? We're first level. Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
are. All
Yeah.
right. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.